Hello, everyone. We often imagine our heroes as invincible, especially the legendary ones. Think of Merlin, the wizard without equal, architect of Camelot, advisor to kings, master of magic. His name itself conjures images of boundless wisdom and power, a man who could see through the very fabric of time. But what if the greatest wizard in history, a man who saw past, present, and future, what if his ultimate gift, foresight, became his ultimate curse? That, my friends, is the profound paradox of Merlin, and it is a tale of destiny, betrayal, and the crushing soul-bending weight of knowing your own end. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just see the legendary Merlin in a completely new and far more human light. If you find this journey into myth intriguing, Merlin wasn't born from ordinary flesh and blood. His very existence was an anomaly, a bridge between worlds, a living paradox from his first breath. Legend whispers of his birth from a demon, an incubus, and a virtuous mortal woman. This unholy union, orchestrated by dark forces to create an antichrist, a being of pure malevolence, instead birthed a creature of immense, unparalleled power, but with a soul tempered by his mother's grace, forever caught between the infernal and the divine. From the moment he drew breath, Merlin was marked, imbued with gifts that set him apart from all others. The early church, in its fervor, sought to condemn him, to purge this demonic stain from the world. But his mother's unwavering faith and Merlin's own nascent, terrifying power saw him spared. From childhood he was different. Not just a prodigy, but a seer, a living conduit to the cosmic currents of fate. Visions clear as day assaulted him, fey-past echoes, present realities unseen by others, and future pathways laid bare like open scrolls. He saw the rise and fall of kingdoms, the petty machinations of men, the ebb and flow of magic itself across the land. He saw the very bones of the earth, felt the pulse of time in its primordial beat. This was not mere clairvoyance. The world spoke to him in riddles and revelations, a constant, overwhelming cacophony of what was, what is, and what will be. He bore this immense knowledge, not as a simple gift, but often as a torment. For to see everything is to be perpetually haunted by the inevitable. He saw beauty, yes, but also the festering corruption beneath the surface, the slow decay of even the brightest dreams. He was a beacon of light, yet walked perpetually in the shadow of tomorrow's sorrow, a burden that would define his entire existence. This profound insight, this Golden Yendru, seeing far ahead, Fey became his blessing and his curse, setting him on a solitary path, always knowing, always planning, yet always aware of the ultimate, unalterable destination. His destiny, when Uther Pendragon wrestled for control, a fractured land consumed by petty squabbles, brutal wars, and the encroaching darkness of the Saxon invaders. Merlin was there, not merely as an advisor, but as a silent guiding force, a grand chess master moving pieces on the board of fate. He foretold Uther's rise, his fleeting glory, and the tragic circumstances that would lead to the birth of the kingdom's greatest hope. It was Merlin, with his unparalleled foresight and strategic genius, who orchestrated the miraculous, controversial conception of Arthur, using powerful glamours and subtle manipulation to ensure the true heir's safety, spiriting him away to be raised in obscurity, away from the vicious power struggles that threatened to tear Britain asunder. He knew the prophecy, the once and future king, a beacon of hope destined to unite the land. He saw the shining city of Camelot, a utopian vision of justice and enlightenment, rising from the mist-enshrouded hills. He saw the Round Table, a symbol of equality among knights, a fraternity of heroes bound by loyalty and honor. These were not mere dreams. They were blueprints meticulously crafted in his mind, painted with the brushstrokes of fate honed over decades, even centuries of premonition. He shaped the very bedrock of a civilization, tirelessly working to lay the foundations of a golden age. Yet, even as he toiled to bring about this magnificent era, a constant hum of discord vibrated in his mind. Shadows clung to the edges of his brightest visions, like a raven perched on the tallest parapet, foretelling an inevitable storm. He saw Arthur's triumphs, yes, but also his heartbreaks, his betrayals, the gradual erosion of trust, and ultimately the kingdom's shattering fall. And through it all, a specific, chilling presentiment about his own end began to solidify, no longer a vague shadow, but a distinct, terrifying image. It was a vision not of glorious battle or a final, noble sacrifice in the defense of his king, but of quiet entrapment, a slow fading into oblivion, utterly devoid of grandeur. This vision was his constant companion, an unwelcome guest in the palace of his mind, a sinister counterpoint to the glory he was building. It was a cruel jest of the cosmos, to grant unparalleled foresight, but deny the slightest shred of free will regarding his own fate, to show the path but bind the feet. He was an architect building a magnificent edifice, knowing full well it would one day crumble, and that his own ultimate, ignominious fate was inextricably linked to its demise, yet utterly unable to change a single brick or beam of his own ending. He was, in essence, a prisoner of time, bound by the very knowledge that made him so powerful. Imagine the daily torment of seeing you not as a distant possibility, a fleeting, what if but as a vivid, undeniable future event etched into the very fabric of your being. How would you live? Every decision, every conversation, every path taken would be tinged with that knowledge, a bitter-sweet, often agonizing, taste on your tongue. For Merlin, this was a daily reality, a relentless, quiet torment. The way it made him guarded, often melancholic, his ancient eyes holding a wisdom that went beyond mere experience. To the very edge of sorrow, he saw the forces that would unravel Camelot long before they stirred in the hearts of men. He warned Arthur, with the gravitas of ages, of Lancelot's deepening affections for Guinevere, seeing it as a festering wound waiting to burst forth and consume the kingdom from within. He saw Mordred, the serpent in the garden, the child of incest destined to strike down his own father, to tear apart the very foundations Merlin had so painstakingly laid. His warnings, delivered with the gravity of ages, often came with a profound weariness, a sense of knowing too much. For he knew they would be met with the youthful optimism, blind stubbornness, or misplaced trust of those he served. He bore the solitary burden of truth, a Cassandra figure trapped in the body of a wizard, seeing the inevitable, yet often utterly powerless to prevent it. He could nudge destiny, he could guide the currents, he could avert minor catastrophes, but he could never rewrite the grand script entirely. This was his personal purgatory, a see but cannot change agony that gnawed at his spirit. He performed miracles, defeated formidable sorcerers, advised kings, and shaped the very course of a nation. Yet the shadow of his own inevitable, quiet end loomed larger than any dragon he ever faced. It wasn't a glorious battle, not a final stand against a dark lord. It was something far more insidious, more personal, more tragic, slow, deliberate winding down, a deliberate step. He was a man walking on thin ice, knowing precisely when and where it would crack beneath him, yet compelled by an unseen, undeniable force to take each and every step. The sheer loneliness of his burden, of carrying the future for a kingdom that often chose to ignore it, was a weight heavier than any stone. And then she entered his life, Nimue, or perhaps Viviane or the Lady of the Lake, for she goes by many names in the annals of myth, her identity often shifting like mist, but her role remains chillingly consistent, the beautiful, enigmatic enchantress who would be Merlin's undoing. She was young, vibrant, possessed of an insatiable curiosity for magic, her eyes sparkling with an eager, almost predatory, thirst for knowledge. She sought Merlin out, drawn by his immense reputation, eager to learn his deepest secrets, to unravel the mysteries of his unparalleled power. She approached him not with overt malice, but with a beguiling blend of admiration and charm, a cunning intellectual curiosity. And Merlin, the aged, solitary wizard, fell. Was it love? A poignant, late-gen life romance for a man who had sacrificed personal happiness for the greater good? A yearning for connection after centuries of isolation? Or was it a yearning for companionship, a desire to pass on his accumulated knowledge before his foreseen end? a final desperate grasp at leaving a tangible legacy beyond Camelot? Or was it simply the inescapable pull of fate? He knew, oh, how he knew. His visions screamed warnings. They showed him the glint in her eyes, not just of admiration, but of ambition, of a subtle, calculated greed for power that would ultimately consume him. He saw the cold embrace of stone, the suffocating silence, the eternal twilight. He saw himself trapped. Yet he was helpless. It was a moth to a flame, a river to the sea, a tragic progression he could no more resist than he could stop the turning of the stars. He began to teach her, spell by spell, secret by secret, pouring centuries of accumulated wisdom into her eager mind. Each lesson, each shared incantation, was a step closer to his grave. Each shared moment of intimacy, each quiet it was a slow Jan-motion tragedy, witnessed by its own protagonist, a man consciously walking into his own doom. The grand architect of kingdoms, the most powerful mage to ever walk the earth, found himself ensnared by the simplest, most potent of human frailties, the intoxicating blend of affection, trust, and the desperate, almost foolish. Hope for a different outcome, even when his every fibre. He poured his heart and his magic into her like an artist meticulously painting his own final magnificent prison. Compelled by a script he could not alter, only perform, he was caught in a trap of his own foresight. Knowing the what and how, yet unable to break free from the why, their journey together took them to the mystical forest of Brock-Feliande, a place where magic hung thick in the air, where ancient trees whispered secrets of forgotten ages, and shimmering lakes held reflections of other worlds. It was there, amidst the whispering leaves and the dappled sunlight, a place of profound power and profound vulnerability, that his fate would be sealed. Nimue, having learned all she could, her heart now cold, she had extracted his most potent enchantments, his deepest secrets, including the very spell that would bind him a secret passed from master to apprentice. Now a lethal weapon in the hand of betrayal, Merlin, in his endless foresight, had even taught her the charm that would imprison himself. Why? Was it a final act of resignation, a profound weariness of the endless struggle against what was to be, a twisted sacrifice for her insatiable thirst for power, a grim acceptance of his role in her ascension, or was it simply the unstoppable current of destiny forcing his hand even in the act of resistance, an unyielding tide dragging him to shore? The exact method varies in legend. Some say she wove a magical prison of air, an invisible tower from which he could never escape. His voice unheard, others speak of a hawthorn bush magically transformed into a living tomb, its thorny branches becoming unbreakable bars. Still others, a crystal cave sealed shut by an unbreakable enchantment, trapping him in eternal twilight, a silent witness to the world, moving on without him. The result was always the same. He was there, with Nimue, in a moment of supposed tenderness, perhaps a shared meal, a quiet conversation, or a moment of feigned passion, a final cruel irony. And then the incantation, the words he himself had taught her, now turned against him, a poisoned dart from his own quiver, delivered with a smile. The magical energy surged, not with violent force. He felt the bonds forming, the world shrinking, the encroaching darkness, the slow, cold embrace of eternity, and he didn't fight. Not truly. He didn't unleash his vast power to shatter the spell, to incinerate Nimue, to escape the preordained moment. He simply let it happen. A silent acceptance, a profound weariness born of ages of seeing the inevitable. The knowing had finally culminated in the doing. The wizard who moved mountains, who commanded dragons, who saw the threads of fate, allowed himself to be bound, imprisoned, and forgotten. His screams, if there were any, were swallowed by the ancient woods, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the triumphant, chilling laughter of a woman now drunk on stolen power. His power, vast and terrible, became inert. Trapped alongside him, a sleeping giant in a tomb of his own making, a monument to a fate he chose not to defy. With Merlin gone, an irreplaceable light faded from Camelot, plunging the nascent kingdom into an accelerating twilight. The vibrant magic that once protected its borders, the astute counsel that guided its king, the wisdom that illuminated the kingdom once vibrant with his magic protected by his foresight, slowly began to unravel. Arthur, who had come to rely on Merlin's sagacity as much as his own strength, lost his wisest adviser, his most potent shield against treachery and despair. The warnings he had given, once dismissed as the ramblings of an old man or the anxious fears of a seer, now came to pass with horrifying precision and devastating speed. Lancelot and Guinevere's affair, once a whispered secret, now exploded into open scandal, tearing at the moral fabric of the Round Table, poisoning the bonds of camaraderie. Mordred's treachery, a festering wound Merlin had tried desperately to cauterize with his prophecies, brought civil war brother, fighting brother night against night, plunging the land into internecine conflict. This chaos culminated in the devastating Battle of Camelot. There the dream of Camelot shattered, scattered like dust on the wind, and Arthur himself fell mortally wounded, the last vestiges of a golden age bleeding onto the fields. It was a kingdom that had lost its architect, its moral compass, its magical guardian, and could not withstand the onslaught of its own internal flaws. And Merlin, trapped in his invisible prison, in his crystal cave, or within the hawthorn's embrace, could only watch Fay, perhaps sensing the echoes of the chaos, the despair, the destruction he could no longer prevent. His foresight, once a tool for building, for guiding, for protecting, had become a window to a future he was utterly powerless to change, a silent scream of a world. The paradox was complete. He saw his own tragic end, and in accepting it, in allowing it to unfold, he sealed the fate of the greatest kingdom Britain had ever known. His wisdom, his power, his foresight, none could save him from the simple, yet profound, human tragedy of betrayal and the inescapable, iron march of destiny. The deafening silence of his prison was echoed by the deafening silence of a kingdom undone, its glory a fleeting memory, its hope extinguished with his imprisonment. Merlin's story isn't just a tale of magic and medieval knights. It is a profound exploration of human nature, destiny, and the agonizing, isolating burden of knowledge. Could he have fought back unquestionably? With his immense power, he could have incinerated Nimue, shattered her spells into dust, perhaps even altered the very fabric of time to prevent her birth. Could he have chosen a different path, avoided Nimue altogether, or simply refused to teach her his most dangerous secrets? Logically, yes, he possessed the free will to choose. But here lies the true paradox, the knowing yet choosing conundrum, the Sumi Nantal, Fay inescapable destiny, Fay at the heart of his legend. Was his downfall truly self-Jan inflicted? A fatal flaw in a god-Jan-like being, a moment of profound human vulnerability, or was it merely the culmination of a fate he saw, accepted, and perhaps even subconsciously guided himself towards? Was his foresight not just a prediction, but a self-Jan fulfilling prophecy, a path so clearly laid out that even a wizard of his caliber chose to walk it, a final act of profound, almost cosmic resignation? It forces us to ask, if you knew your end, if you saw the exact moment and method of your undoing, would you fight it tooth and nail, clawing against the inevitable with every fiber of your being, or would you find a strange, melancholic peace in its certainty, a resigned surrender to the cosmic script, a weary acceptance of what simply must be? Merlin, the ultimate seer, the master of prophecy, chose the latter, revealing a deeply human vulnerability beneath the robes of the all-Jan powerful wizard. His tragedy lies not just in his powerlessness to escape his fate, but in his profound, almost serene acceptance of it, a choice that reverberates through the ages. His legacy is not just the legend of Camelot, but the enduring, haunting question of free will versus destiny, a question that perhaps even the greatest wizard, the man who knew all, could not fully answer. He was the master of time, yet a slave to his own future, forever trapped between what could be and what must be, a silent oracle in his own timeless prison. That is all for today's video. If you found this dive into Merlin's tragic paradox captivating, please make sure to hit that like button, share this video with fellow myth enthusiasts, and subscribe to our channel for more journeys into the heart of ancient legends. Your support helps us bring these stories to life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.